Hello and welcome to lesson number 11. We are moving on through the book of Mark, which is really a short book anyway. And we're looking at one of the major miracles of Jesus today, feeding the 5,000, and a little bit different reading in the book of Mark, which is not uncommon. I think most Gospels list discuss this because it was in Mark. They use him as a beginning text. Lesson 11, more than enough. And talks about how God, the Lord, fed these 5,000. And not only that, but they had leftovers. So, fish, here we go, in bread. Pretty basic food for people in that day. Mark chapter 6, 30 through 44. Main idea is never measure a problem considering your own resources. Because a little can become much in the hands of Jesus. 5 loaves and 2 fish fed 500 people with leftovers. And he could do the same thing with our lives and our little if we'll submit it to him. Let him do what he does, is which he multiplies things. It's what he's good at. Question to explore: do I really believe that where God guides, he provides? And it's kind of this idea that if God's calling you to do something, he's going to give you the resources to do it. Boy, that's kind of a thing. It's hard sometimes to know what God's will is. And, a lot of things are spelled out in Scripture. You don't need to pray about it. But there are some things that's kind of like, well, what is it? Lord, what is your will? But he does provide. He gets us through somehow. So, feeding the 5,000. This is one of the 7 miracles listed in the book of John. John only lists 7, but reads a little bit different. I think John says that the fish and the loaves came from a little boy who had it in his sack, his lunch. So it's kind of funny. First miracle on that day was the little boy hadn't already ate his lunch. You know how little boys are with their lunch. If they get hungry, they're going to eat it no matter if it's lunchtime or 9 o'clock in the morning, But he gave his lunch and they used it to be a blessing. So good for him. Let's go ahead and read the lesson today. Pretty long passage again, 14 verses, but good stuff, good story, positive story. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done. You remember he sent them out 2 by 2, so they came back and they had good reports. And so Jesus was kind of interested to hear what they had to say and their thoughts on it. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by ourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." Jesus was 100% God, but he was also human. And he got tired and he got frustrated. And, I get it. With people around you all the time, you sometimes need a break. So they're looking for a little bit of peace. So they went to find a quiet place to get some rest. Well, guess what? It didn't work. Verse 32, so they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. So they're on the Sea of Galilee. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. He couldn't. This is at the beginning of his ministry. Well, in Mark, a lot of people still wanting to be around him. So he can't get away. They get there and the people are there. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them. And Jesus, that's a great word, compassion, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. They needed help. So he began teaching them many things. And boy, what a teacher he was. So they're trying to find a place to rest, can't do it. They show up, people are there. So what does Jesus do? He had compassion and he started teaching them. And I think we need to have compassion. I don't know how you feel when you see people, but to be Christ-like, you have to have compassion on them and look beyond their problems and love them the way they are. And Jesus did. He had compassion on them. What a beautiful word. Well, here's the next part of the passage. By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, and it's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. That's logical, isn't it? But he answered, You give them something to eat. They said to him, that would take more than half a year's wages. Man, there's lots of people here. We don't have that kind of money. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? And Jesus knows exactly what he's going to do. He's going to feed them, but he's also going to strengthen the faith of the disciples by letting them see the power that he had. How many loaves do you have? He asked. They said, Go and see. When they found out, they said 5 and 2 fish. Now, fish and loaves, very basic meal. They're on the Sea of Galilee. Fish and bread are a staple. I was reading one of the parables of Jesus talking about leaven, and yeast. And this woman had a little bit of yeast, but she had 60 pounds of flour that she was working the leaven into the flour. So making bread was a very basic thing. They did it every day. It's a very basic part of life, and Jesus says, I'm the bread of life. Man, they knew exactly what he was talking about. It's a very basic thing. They ate it every day. Fish. There's the Sea of Galilee. Jesus fish. Half his disciples were fishermen. It was just what they did. It was a very common thing. So, a lot of the fish was baked or smoked. So this little boy's got his lunch, and that's what he's got. So, verse 39, Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. See, they're just right out there on the side of the hill. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. The way we envision this is it's in a basket, and he just keeps breaking it and handing it out, and it just keeps multiplying. And that's what that's part of the thing is if you put it in his hands, he can multiply the resources that we have. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them. They all ate and were satisfied. Now, I got to tell you, that's a rare thing. I ate with my Whataburger people this morning and ate my taquito and drank my coffee. I think I have my Whataburger coffee right here, But to eat and be satisfied, I had a banana with it too, was a rare thing. They only ate 2 meals a day, really. And so to have enough to eat and to be full, such a rare thing. I think there's a spiritual context to that, and that's what the Lord does. He gives you more than enough, and his blessings are so numerous, and it's satisfying. So they were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. Now, a lot left over. 12 is a complete number. Man, there was a lot left over. So what was it? 5 loaves and 2 fish fed 500 people, and then they had a ton of food left over. The number of men who had eaten, this is just the men, were 5,000. Fed the 5,000. Now, when we look at Moses crossing the Dead Sea, it talks about how many people. And if it says 3 million, it was probably 12 million because, you had a wife and you had children. So the same thing here was probably more than 5,000. So isn't that incredible? That would be a difficult thing to do today, much less out there on the side of the sea with 5 loaves and 2 fish and feeding thousands and having that much left over. So amazing, amazing. So one of the major miracles of Jesus, did Jesus keep feeding people? Was that the only reason he was around? Other gospel accounts have this at different places in his ministry, and some of the time it says the people followed him to the next place, and Jesus didn't do it there because he said, "You're only here because you want to eat." So his ministry on this day was to feed them, which I think is important, but that's not the only thing that he did. I know churches that are really good at feeding people, but they never share the gospel. They're not good about the message. Not that that's a terrible thing, because people are hungry, but it should be more than that. Even Jesus recognized that. Well, let me give you some truth. First truth is that Jesus can do anything within his will, even feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. What a miracle this was. Beautiful thing to see. I mean, he is limited by his will, which is self-imposed. He has a plan. Man, if I know anything, God has a plan. So if you're a planner, you're a godly person, because God always has a plan, and he's always moving forward. So don't limit the Lord, really, is what we're saying. Don't let what you see and what you think be the limiting factor, because God may be thinking a lot bigger. Second truth is Jesus' ministry wasn't just about feeding the hungry. I've said that. This was a miracle to display his awesome power. Most of the miracles of Jesus were multifaceted, where he didn't just do it for one reason. He had multiple reasons, and usually to encourage people's faith was one of them. Yes, he loved people. Yes, he grieved when people died, and he resurrected Lazarus because Lazarus was his best friend. But he did it for other reasons. Okay? So, third point is anything we give to the Lord, he can multiply it to be a blessing. So, give what you have to him and let him use it as he sees fit. All right, well, it's Tuesday. I got a full day ahead of me. Let me pray with you. Jesus, we love you, and we know that you're powerful enough to do anything, even with our little bit. Help us to put it in your hands, let you bless it, and let you do great things with it. Lord, we trust you with all things, and we glorify you today. In your name I pray. Amen. I pray you have a great Tuesday. It's going to be a long, hard day of work for me. Take care.